how the Cold War developed between 1945 and 53. So in 1945 we had the two conferences, Yalta and Potsdam, discussed in last video. So in 1946, Iron Curtain speech, which formalized the Cold War and gave the division of Europe a name, and it also angered Stalin. Also in 1946 was the Kennan Telegram. The Kennan Telegram was a telegram written by George Kennan to the US Embassy. It explained to the US government how the Soviet government saw itself in the international community. He concentrated on giving the Soviets weaknesses and proposed strategies on how to defeat them. Kennan stated that the Soviets were weak and would be sensitive to force. He wrote from Moscow, where he had been living for quite a few years. The telegram confirmed Truman's suspicions that the USSR was expansionist, aggressive, and hostile, and needed to be stopped. It was sent February 22, 1946. It coincided with Churchill's Iron Curtain speech. Truman acted on Kennan's advice because Kennan was US ambassador to Russia and had lived in Moscow for many years. Next, in 1947, we get the Truman Doctrine and Marshall Aid, right? So before we can discuss Truman Doctrine, the Truman Doctrine needs to know about isolationism. Isolationism is a policy that the USA used to have. They would not get involved with other countries' affairs. And the Truman Doctrine basically ended that policy. The Truman Doctrine was designed to contain communism. It was part of Truman's Iron Fist approach, was a response to the takeover of Eastern Europe. It was influenced by the Kennan Telegram and the Iron Curtain speech. The trigger cause for it was the Civil War in Greece, wasn't that the Marshall Plan? I don't know. And British bankruptcy. Next came the Marshall Plan, which was basically the method, like the Truman Doctrine, being carried out. It was based on the belief that communism spreads in poor countries, so if they gave countries money, then they wouldn't turn to communism. Marshall Aid gave financial aid to countries in Europe. It wasn't just offered to Western European countries, it was also offered to Eastern European countries, but Stalin made Eastern European countries refuse the aid, so only Western European countries got Marshall Aid. The trigger cause for that was Greece and Turkey. The Marshall Plan is also known as the European Recovery Plan. Consequences of the Marshall Plan. It deteriorated the relationship between the USA and USSR. Stalin refused to allow Eastern European countries to accept aid. Greece and Turkey avoided communism. Western European countries recovered. The USSR responded with Cominform and Comecon. It showed the US determination to tackle communism, ending its policy of isolationism, and deepen the split in Europe. Now let's talk a bit more about Comecon and Cominform. Cominform is officially called the Information Bureau of the Communist and Workers' Parties. Its purpose was to handle communist governments under Soviet control. It encouraged unity of all communist parties under Soviet direction. It was founded in September of 1947 at a conference between Communist Party leaders in response to the Truman Doctrine. Comecon, the Council for Mutual Economic Assistance, was made in 1949 and was an economic organization. It appeared that it was Stalin's way of enforcing Soviet domination of the lesser states of Central Europe, and to gain the goodwill of countries that had expressed interest in the Marshall Plan. So it was basically, Comecon was the response to the Truman Doctrine, and Cominform was Cominform was a response to the Truman Doctrine, and Comecon was a response to Marshall Aid, I think. Yes. So Cominform was all about spreading communism and retaining capitalism, and Comecon was basically just giving some aid, economical aid, to Eastern European countries. Next, in 1948, we have the Berlin Blockade. We're going to discuss what happened, why, and the consequences. The reasons for the Berlin Blockade. It was a test of the Truman Doctrine and Truman's Iron Fist approach. There had been growing tensions in Berlin. The new currency introduced showed that West Berlin was unlikely to be given up by the USA. Bisonia showed that Berlin was unlikely to be one city under Soviet control. Marshall Aid was making West Berlin wealthier which was very embarrassing for Stalin because basically communism looked like crap next to capitalism because West Berlin was doing so much better economically and just people were happier, standards of living were way better. What happened? All road and rail links were all shut down, no one could get in or out, so the US responded with the Berlin Airlift, with planes airlifting supplies in to West Berlin. It went on for 318 days, so basically a year, with a plane about every 2 or 3 minutes. Stalin did not shoot down the planes because America had the A-bomb and could have just responded with bombing Russia or the Soviet Union, whatever. So the Berlin Airlift helped him realize that he really needed an A-bomb. Consequences of the Berlin blockade. Germany was divided into the Federal Democratic Republic, I'm guessing here. Okay, FDR and DDR. I don't know what they stand for. The Cold War got worse. It was intensified. Led to the arms race because then it led to Stalin making the A-bomb. And it led to NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, which was made in 1949. Agreement was that if the Soviets declared war on any member of NATO, all of the countries in NATO would join together in attack. And it was a defensive military alliance, but Stalin saw it as an aggressive alliance. When hearing about the Soviet bomb, Truman ordered for a new, even more powerful bomb, which was totally unnecessary. And he built the H-bomb, which is a hydrogen bomb. The amount of money that USA was spending on defense rapidly increased. Only a few months after the first American test of their H-bomb in 1953, the Soviet Union tested their own H-bomb. The race was on. So this is about the arms race, by the way. In 1949, the Chinese Communist Party successfully got power in in China. The Cold War had now spread into Asia. Following this, the USA developed a theory called the domino theory. This was the theory that if one Asian country fell into communism, many others would do the same. Truman's theory was proved correct in the Korean War in 1950, which ended in 1955? I thought it was 53. Okay. North Korea was ruled by a communist party and was supported by the Soviet Union and China. South Korea had a democratic government and was supported by the USA. When North Korean military forces invaded Southern Korea in 1950, Truman feared the worst. However, South Korea managed to escape communism. In the USA, Senator Joe McCarthy encouraged an anti-communist hysteria that was going around. He started accusing officials and important people of being spies and communists. He caught many government employees passing on confidential information about the atomic bomb. And that is how the Cold War intensified between 1945 to 1953. It was all bad, no good, everyone hated each other, it wasn't a nice time. Okay.